You know that moment when everything hits the fan? When you are utterly convinced that the universe is actively working against you, when you feel like collapsing because the weight of disappointment is just too much? I remember one specific night, huddled on the floor, thinking my life was over because of a massive career failure. That moment, which felt like the lowest, most crushing defeat, was actually the single greatest catalyst for every good thing I have achieved since. What if I told you that the pain you are desperately trying to avoid right now is the secret ingredient for the massive success and personal peace you crave? Keep watching, because we're going deep into why comfort is the enemy and why your suffering is non-negotiable for true growth. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I genuinely appreciate you stopping by. Today's topic is tough, but it's real. Why does it hurt so much? And why must it hurt if we want to get ahead? For years, society has sold us this fantasy of smooth sailing. The idea that if you just manifest hard enough, all the bumps will magically disappear. But the truth, the painful, raw truth that nobody wants to talk about, is that growth demands payment, and that currency is discomfort. We are biologically wired to seek comfort and safety. But that very wiring, that constant search for the easy way out, is what traps millions of people in cycles of stagnation, keeping them miles away from their true, magnificent potential. If you want a life of depth, resilience, and profound satisfaction, you have to be willing to bleed a little first. Period. My own journey is filled with monumental stumbles. I'm not talking about small mistakes. I'm talking about big, public, humiliating failures that made me question everything about my competence and my future. I remember pouring years into a project, mortgaging my time and energy, only to watch it implode spectacularly. The internal dialogue was brutal. You're not good enough. You're an imposter. Give up. That feeling of having the rug pulled out from under you is terrifying. It's the kind of intense, stomach-churning anxiety that makes you want to retreat into a dark room and never face the light again. It feels like the end of the road, but I promise you, that emotional crash is actually the starting line for something far more important and transformative than you can imagine. Right now, what separated that moment of collapse from eventual breakthrough wasn't some sudden flash of genius or a lottery win. It was the realization that I couldn't run anymore. The pain was so intense that it forced me to stop and examine the structural flaws in my mindset and my strategy. That pain became what I now call my anchor pain, the experience so bad that I was permanently changed by it. It was the catalyst that forced me to develop the emotional and psychological tools I needed to succeed next time. Because the alternative, staying small and safe, suddenly felt far scarier than trying and failing again. That feeling of hitting rock bottom isn't just a consequence. It's an instruction manual screaming at you to pivot, adjust, and fortify your inner defenses. This isn't just feel-good spiritual advice either. This is hardwired into our biology. Think about stress, not just emotional, but physical. When you introduce stress, a challenge, a threat, or even deep disappointment, your brain, being the magnificent, adaptive machine that it is, has to change. This is the science of neuroplasticity in action. When you are forced to confront a difficulty, new neural pathways are literally forged. The emotional effort of managing the crisis, navigating heartbreak, or recovering from financial ruin creates mental muscle memory. We are designed to adapt to environmental demands. And if your environment is always soft and easy, your capacity for handling adversity remains underdeveloped, leaving you vulnerable to the first real storm that comes along. the simplest analogy, and one I always share with friends, is the gym. You don't get stronger by lifting what you are already comfortable with. You achieve muscular growth by pushing past your current limit, creating tiny micro tears in the muscle fiber. That tear, that immediate soreness and burning discomfort, is the necessary pain that signals the body to rebuild the muscle, not back to its original strength, but stronger than before. Emotional and psychological growth works exactly the same way. The pain of rejection, the strain of uncertainty, the discomfort of learning a difficult new skill, these are the mental and emotional micro tears that are required for your personal operating system to download the necessary upgrade. You must break slightly to reform fundamentally. We live in an age that promises instant gratification, where success stories are often edited down to highlight only the glamour shots and the aha moments, skipping over the months or even years of grinding misery. This narrative is dangerous because it leads us to believe that if something is hard, if it causes us stress or deep anxiety, then we must be doing it wrong. We assume that smooth progress is the indicator of correctness. But I assure you, everyone who has ever achieved anything meaningful, anything truly transformative, has a long, messy history of pain and failure that they had to process and integrate. The struggle isn't a deviation from the path to success. The struggle is the path itself, and we must honor that uncomfortable truth. Another remarkable side effect of navigating profound pain is the explosive growth of emotional intelligence. Or EQ, when you've been through the ringer, you've known what it feels like to lose everything or to be utterly abandoned, you develop a depth of empathy and self-awareness that is impossible to gain otherwise. You learn how your own emotions truly function under pressure, giving you a powerful internal map. More importantly, you learn how to connect with and understand the struggles of others, moving beyond superficial pleasantries into meaningful, compassionate connection. Pain isn't just a lesson in survival. It's a masterclass in humanity, teaching us patience, perspective, and genuine kindness toward both ourselves and the people around us. It's vital, however, to draw a clear line between experiencing pain and adopting a victim identity. We all feel hurt, that's human. But where many people get permanently stuck is when they allow the narrative of the pain to define their potential. They keep revisiting the trauma not as a lesson learned, but as an excuse for inaction. True resilience doesn't eliminate the pain of the past. It harnesses the energy of that pain, transforming it into fuel for future efforts. We must acknowledge the suffering, mourn the loss, but then, critically, we must pivot from asking, "Why did this happen to me?" to asking the far more powerful question, "Now that this has happened, what am I learning? And how will I use this information to build something better?" So what is the first practical step you need to take right now if you are in a moment of intense difficulty? Stop running. Seriously. Our instinct is to distract ourselves with endless scrolling, quick fixes, or superficial pleasures. But that discomfort is holding a vital piece of information you need for your next move. You need to sit with the uncomfortable emotion, observe it without judgment, and ask it what it is trying to teach you. This act of acknowledging the burn, rather than suppressing it, is the first and most crucial step toward turning pain into productive action. When we stop fighting the feeling, we can start harvesting the lesson it holds, unlocking hidden resilience. I remember when I finally allowed myself to feel the crushing weight of my financial mistakes. It wasn't fun. I spent days deeply ashamed. But that deep discomfort acted like a powerful laser, burning away all the unnecessary distractions and false goals I had accumulated. I realized that my previous endeavors had been driven by ego and external validation, not by genuine purpose. The intense pain of failure provided an astonishing clarity that years of meditation and self-help books never could. It revealed the core value I had neglected, forcing a painful but necessary recalibration of my entire life trajectory. The deeper the hole, often the clearer the view is once you look up. This leads us to the greatest fear wall most people face, the fear of future pain. We endure a nasty setback, and immediately, we build psychological barricades to ensure that specific type of failure never happens again. While caution is wise, this fear often paralyzes us, turning us into emotional risk minimalists who only operate within the narrow confines of what feels safe. We sacrifice massive potential growth simply to avoid the chance of feeling that particular ache again. But by refusing to step back onto the field, even after being injured, we guarantee that our capacity for joy, success, and profound experiences will also be minimized alongside our vulnerability to loss. You see, pain isn't just something to endure. It's training. Think of every heartbreak, every rejection letter, every public mistake as resilience training reps. The human spirit, much like a physical muscle, needs consistent challenging loads to become stronger, more durable, and more adaptable. Every time you successfully navigate a crisis, you are essentially creating psychological armor that makes the next challenge less daunting, even if it feels just as intense. This cumulative effort builds a deep inner certainty that even if things go catastrophically wrong, you have the inner resources to survive, rebuild, and ultimately thrive, which is the definition of true power. Furthermore, pain is the ultimate test of character. When things are easy, everyone can maintain a positive facade. But who you are, your integrity, your resolve, your core values is truly revealed when the pressure is immense, the resources are scarce, and the emotional toll is high. It's in those dark, pressured moments that you discover whether you operate from a place of fear, selfishness, or integrity. The struggle strips away the superficial layers, exposing the true foundational material of your being. This self-discovery, though excruciating, is invaluable, allowing you to align your actions with the person you genuinely aspire to be. Forging an authentic self. It is absolutely crucial that we redefine our mental label for failure. Stop calling it a definitive end. Start calling it data. Every setback is merely expensive tuition paid for a lesson that cannot be learned theoretically. If you fail a dozen times, you haven't accumulated a dozen failures. You've accumulated 12 pieces of complex data about what doesn't work, refining your approach until you find the path that does. This reframing instantly removes the paralyzing shame and transforms the pain into purposeful, actionable intelligence. When you adopt this mindset, your past mistakes become your greatest intellectual asset, ensuring that the suffering you endured was not in vain, but rather a necessary investment. Consider the cost of avoidance. If you succeed in insulating yourself completely from all emotional and psychological discomfort, always choosing the easy path, never taking a risk that might lead to rejection, never committing deeply enough to risk heartbreak, what is the eventual outcome? A life of mediocrity, a life characterized by unfulfilled potential, and a pervasive low-level anxiety that stems from knowing you settled. The pain of regret often far outweighs the acute pain of failure. The regret of what you could have been, had you been brave enough to face the temporary fire of struggle. is a chronic, corrosive suffering that lasts a lifetime. Moreover, we cannot truly appreciate joy without having measured it against sorrow. It's the paradox of the human experience. Imagine tasting something intensely sweet without ever having experienced a bitter or sour flavor. The sweetness would lose its definition and its brilliance. Similarly, enduring profound hardship gives texture, context, and depth to moments of triumph and peace. When you finally achieve that long-sought goal, the success tastes infinitely sweeter because you remember the bitterness of the struggle required to get there. It elevates fleeting happiness into meaningful, deep gratitude for the journey. So, where does this leave you today, my dear friends? It leaves you with the power to re-examine the current difficulty in your life, whether it's a career dead end, a broken relationship, or a health challenge. Understand that this moment of struggle is not a sign that you are cursed or doing something wrong. It is merely proof that you are actively engaging with life, pushing your boundaries, and moving toward necessary transformation. Embrace the hurt as a signal. See it as the universe pruning away what no longer serves you, making space for something exponentially better and stronger. That the transformation isn't about eliminating pain. It's about changing your relationship with it. It's about looking at that moment of stinging failure and saying, "Thank you for the data. Thank you for the pressure. Thank you for forcing me to become someone I couldn't have become in comfort." The pain is necessary, but the suffering is optional, determined by whether you choose to be defined by the wound or empowered by the scar. Start reframing today. This struggle is not ruining you. It is refining you into the unstoppable, resilient individual you were meant to be. Remember that every single successful, happy, and resilient person you admire has a graveyard of buried failures and a tapestry woven with tough lessons. Now is the time to gather your strength, learn the lesson the pain is offering, and move forward with greater wisdom and unmatched grit. If this video resonated with you, if you're currently working through your own transformative pain, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this with anyone who needs a reminder that their struggle is their strength. Subscribe for more deep dives into mindset and personal growth. And let me know in the comments below, what was the most painful lesson that ultimately led to your greatest breakthrough? I read every single comment. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and embrace the beautiful mess of your own journey.